Okay, Troop, in this video, we're going to look at the more advanced production techniques to making your own D&B breaks. This video is going to carry on from the previous one right here. So if you don't already have a fundamental grasp of what it takes to put a D&B break together, watch that one first and then come back to this one. So let's dive straight into Logic and see what we're talking about. Okay, so from the D&B breaks video, this is the break that we put together. Which is absolutely fine. It does the fundamentals of a D&B break, everything's there. But we can take it a lot further when we start adding and so we've gone from 2. And in terms of an overall track, you'll probably agree, pretty big difference. So let's have a look at the things we've added and what we've done to it to flesh that big break out. Start ourselves from the top here. We've got this thing named Ana Break, and what it stands for is analog break, and it is recorded from the drum machine just in front of me here. So on its own, it's like this. Now it's completely in mono, it's on this track here. And what it's doing, it's adding some frequency and space and sound that isn't in the original break here. So they're working together, and because it is mono, it's always right down the center. Now there's some things that have happened to it as well. I've taken out basically all of this mid-range, everything in this area here. We didn't need that. It sounds okay, but it's in the original break, in the original shuffle. What we're really grasping for here is this nice big low end, and this kind of clicky tops here, and when the snare kind of rim shot comes through, we're just letting that lift up a little bit. It's compressed pretty heavily as well, so it's squeezing that kick and making it draw out for a little bit longer. That can be done completely to taste. An important factor is this guy here. This is R-bass. What R-bass does is you can choose an exact frequency and it generates a harmonic based on the sound coming in. So sound comes in, R-bass makes a harmonic where you've told it to. Sound goes away, harmonic comes down with it. Today's tutorial is sponsored by DistroKid. They allow me to get my music like this out to all of the major streaming platforms. If you want to release your music too at a price an independent artist can easily afford, check the description below for some more information on distributing your music with DistroKid and get a discount off of your first year of unlimited distribution using that link. This frequency here at 73, which is nice and low down, that is the base of the kick. It's the real body of it, right? And it's set to the frequency of the track. So it's generating a harmonic at exactly that right frequency. There's then another EQ after that, taking everything else around it away and just focusing on that key note, which in this case, there we are, 73.416 Hertz is where we've landed, but that is D2 and the track's in D. So we're using this to generate that harmonic. We're taking everything else out around it and we're getting just that harmonic range there of that note, which then aligns with the other break. It's giving us that extra weight below the original, and it's in tune with the track as well. Nothing else fancy happening in here. We've just made these sounds on the synth just to have them layer in and fit with the break. You could do this using the Logic drum synths if you wanted and get basically the same effect. Just because I happen to have it in front of me here, it's nice and easy to switch it on, dial it in and record it. We've then got a second one here, which is just a snare made on the analog, and I keep that separate because I can track it out separately, and that's just this snappy snare layer there. And again, that's sitting on top of this. And it's just giving all that extra space and sound. And again, it doesn't conflict with the original break, it adds to it. Now this time it's ended up being stereo, but that's because I wanted it to be wide and reverby, right? And it goes to a reverb send, as does the previous one. And the reverb send is the drum room here. Which is an RC48, just giving a little bit of tonality, and room sound, all of the lows rolled off right up into the snare body. And both of these are going into that to give them the feeling of being in that same space. The original break, we keep that separate. So it still rides along on its own. So there's that snare setting in there. Have a little look again. We've added loads and loads of high end. It's all reactive. We've got these really strong fundamentals coming through, no low end. And again, taking out all those mids that are in the break, because we don't need that. The break sits in that space quite nicely. All this other stuff's getting fancy lifted up. Compression, again, done to taste, literally 1 dB of compression with a relatively slow release just to get that shh. And then our bass again, oddly enough, look, on the snare, and that's generating us another harmonic. And this time it's doing it again at D, but 1 octave up from where we were before. So again, this means that snare is tuned in to the rest of the track. So together, the two are like this. Very tuned to the track with their fundamentals using our bass here. And then the break sits between the two of them. So those are the main things that bulk up the break. That R-bass technique where we've got the kick drum tuned right in on the D, so down at like 73 I think we are for D, and then the snare exactly the same thing. Those two harmonics in relation to the track's in D, the kick drum's always going to be boom right on the note, the snare's always got a harmonic right in there as well, the next octave up, so we're going D, 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 giving us a relative melody and rhythm to go along with the drums. And then our original old school vibey break sits in between the two, riding everything along. Now everything else from here on out is purely ear candy. I've used the Bluebird kit in Logic, turned everything off but the ride, and I do this quite a lot because I like to have just this little ticky ride along the top. Just gives us this. Not complex at all. Effect wise, no low end whatsoever. Even where the snare body would be and that mid-range that we cut out and everything else, it's just not there. It's just gone. I don't need it. I want everything else to have space and this just sit on top. Now there'll be ride cymbal harmonics down here and it will have like the body and the kind of clashy, almost boxiness that comes with it. I just don't want it in there. I don't need it. It doesn't add anything. But if we take the EQ off, see how much thinner it becomes? But there's like 30 other sounds. But there's like 30 other sounds happening down in that space. I don't need all that in there. If it was going to be just that on its own, maybe I'd EQ it. So we've got some of that low end, we've got some of that character. But in context of the overall break, it works fine like this. And there's a compressor on there again, really slow release, just keeping that tail in control so we can hear it. And then we've got two shakers. Both of these are just samples, I'm guessing from Kashmir. and they might even be the same sample, just done slightly differently in Q Sampler, where the volume will be brought right down. They'll have different fades and filters or whatever you want on. And the reason for them, they just sit on top of everything else like this. Yeah, they're ever so slightly different on the left and right. You could even like hard pan them like that if you needed the space. I'm not a fan of that. I quite like what I've done here, having them slightly panned, but central. And the last thing to note is they all go to a bus. They all go to bus 9, look. Even my little sample at the start here. That's just to give a little feel to the break as if it's kind of been chopped up as a whole. It all goes into this analog EQ here, which has got the tiniest little bit of a lift here and the tiniest bit of a boost, 2.4 dB at 3.2K. Clearly, I just thought it needed that little bit of a lift up. And this analog EQ adds loads of character as well, whether you're line or mic in. I should probably have dialed it back because it adds loudness as well. Switch that off. Yeah, super different. It adds loads of saturation and character. That's one of the reasons I like to use it. That's from IK Multimedia. I'll link all the plugins below. And then I've got the G-Bus compressor, hardly doing any work. I've got the G-Bus compressor, hardly doing any work, literally dB.5, maybe 2 dB. These are the settings I use a lot of the time, you know, slow attack, easy ratio, release super quick, just squeezing everything together and giving a bit of control. And then there's another EQ afterwards because there's some automation happening here where I dip something out later. That's why it's a nice clean Pro Q filter. That's literally all she wrote. Yeah, that's it. So that's how we can take that old school break that we built initially using just those main 4 samples and build it out into our completely own break and have it tuned into the track. I really hope that's been helpful for you. If you'd like to see a complete track breakdown that's like 6 hours long, jump on this video next. I take you from a complete blank project in Logic to a finished track that you can actually download the whole project for as well and really dive into. So I hope that's helpful for you. I look forward to seeing you in a So I really hope that's helpful for you and I look forward to seeing you in that one. Take care.